Video game innovations came thick and fast in the years following Space Invaders' phenomenal debut. Much like with Pong 6 years previously, businesses of all stripes rushed into the video game sphere, seeking to capitalise on the doors that Taito had blown open for the world. In 1980 though, all that came to a head, as Namco released the first game featuring a character that's been iconic to the video game world ever since. I'm Lord Theranis, and welcome to Pac-Man, in about 7.5 minutes. I don't think it's too much of an exaggeration to say that pretty much the entire world knows who Pac-Man is. A simple yellow circle and its associated sounds are some of the most recognisable symbols of the gaming world, and the character of Pac-Man has been used or referred to in everything from the Olympics to corporate business strategies. Pac-Man is an iconic game, and it's made by an equally iconic developer, Namco, now known as Namco Bandai. Like Space Invaders before it, Pac-Man has its genesis in the ideas of one man, Toru Iwatani. Iwatani was one of the first people assigned to Namco's in-house game development team, created after Namco absorbed the struggling Japanese division of Atari in 1976. Iwatani worked on several different games whilst a part of that division, including creating Namco's first ever game, 1978's commercially unsuccessful but strong proof of concept, GB. However, it's only in the wake of Space Invaders' success that Iwatani set out to create something really unique. Much like with Pong before it, the video game market quickly flooded with rip-offs, imitators, and outright clones of Space Invaders, as companies rushed to make a quick buck. Now this was all very well and good for making fast profits, but Iwatani felt that these games were aimed at a very narrow audience. He thought that the crude graphics and violent, for the time at least, gameplay was only really appealing to the male audience, and he set out to create a game that defied that and appealed to a common audience, a vibrant, colourful, cheerful game that would appeal to women as well as men. He began with a typically 80s assumption about what women did in their spare time: eating. Suffice to say that's not exactly an enlightened viewpoint, but out-of-date values aside, it's an assumption that served him well when creating gameplay of what was originally called Pac-Man, after the Japanese onomatopoeia for eating, paku paku. Pac-Man was developed over a period of almost a year and a half, which was a record at the time for the length of development of a game. 9 other Namco employees were involved in its creation. A lot of care and attention went into making sure that the design of every element of Pac-Man was simple, colourful, and quote-unquote cute. According to Iwatani himself, the design of the game's eponymous hungry yellow circle was based upon a combination of 2 things. The first, an image of a pizza missing a slice, and the second, a rounded version of the Japanese character kuchi, which means mouth. One of the biggest contributions to Pac-Man's design, though, was actually a completely different game in development at Namco, Galaxian. Galaxian is one of the claimants to the title of the first sprite-based game, and it's almost certainly the first to use coloured sprites in a properly effective manner. Galaxian's development in graphics technology allowed Iwatani to establish the bright, pastel colour palette that Pac-Man is known for, as well as add an extra layer of personality to the game's ubiquitous ghosts. Originally, the ghosts, known in English as Inky, Pinky, Blinky and Clyde, were all the same read as Blinky at the request of senior management at Namco. However, Iwatani decided to give each ghost an independent personality, and with it their own independent gameplay style. The red ghost chases the player, the pink and cyan ghost try to get in front of Pac-Man, and the orange ghost alternates between actively chasing and running away from Pac-Man as he makes his way through the maze. This allowed for a very big revolution in terms of gameplay, as it meant no 2 levels were likely to play the same way, a significant departure from the frankly repetitive gameplay of other games at the time. As a result of this added level of personality, Iwatani also made a decision to add in small segments of animated, uncontrollable interactions between Pac-Man and the ghosts, serving as a bit of a breather between levels. This actually makes Pac-Man the first example in the world of video gaming of cutscenes. The innovations don't just stop there though. Pac-Man's also the first example of power-ups. The power pellets turn the core gameplay loop entirely on its head, switching the focus from avoiding and escaping the ghosts to trying to catch up with them to earn yourself a brief reprieve from their attention once your power-up wears off. Again, something completely mundane nowadays, but completely new back then. In May 1980, location testing began for the game, at that point called Pac-Man. 2 months later, the game launched in Japan with that title still, and it had fairly strong success. As such, Namco were very keen on bringing it to the US market as soon as they possibly could, and this is where Pac-Man becomes the Pac-Man we all know and love. Senior executives at Namco were worried about using the Pac-Man name in the West, the primary reason for that being the issue of potential vandalism. When you've got a game with the name Pac-Man and a large audience of teens and young adults, all it takes is somebody to scratch out part of the P in Pac-Man, and you've got a bit of an indecency issue on your hands. As such, the name was renamed to be closer to the original Pac-Man, and Pac-Man was born. Pac-Man wasn't actually expected to be the most successful product of its launch season. When Namco presented Pac-Man and another game called RallyX at trade shows that year, they were expecting RallyX to be the big name product. Midway Games soon proved them wrong though, as they picked up distribution rights to both games, launching in December 1980, where Pac-Man soon became another complete worldwide phenomenon. The rest, as they say, is history. Pac-Man's had ports, conversions, remakes and remasters galore, perhaps most notably in its early days on the Atari 2600. The port's beyond poor quality on that console dealt a heavy blow to Atari, and it helped contribute to its collapse in the video game crash of 1983. Pac-Man's had a variety of different new characters introduced to the franchise, including the female Miss Pac-Man, more popular in her time than her male counterpart in various areas. It's had new power-ups created, and it's even explored entirely new genres in the scores of different Pac-Man games produced since the big cheese of the arcade sphere made his debut. Games might come and go in the public consciousness, but sometimes it really does seem like Pac-Man is eternal. And that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you've enjoyed listening. If you have, dropping a like on the video and subscribing to the channel are both very much appreciated. But for now, as always, I'll leave you with this to ponder until next time. Was Shakira's Waka Waka just secretly about Pac-Man all along?